Hi, welcome to my presentation about new ways in coaching tennis. Mike Burrell suggested the beautiful title, Power of Differences, which I was happy to adopt. Of course, I focus primarily on kids tennis, but I think that you will also get suggestions for exercise with young people and adults in popular and competitive sports. I would like to tell you something about scientific research on motor learning with examples from my own practice. With my tennis school, we look after 14 small clubs in the south of Germany in the Black Forest. It could be interesting for you that in Germany, sport is mainly organized in clubs. Commercial and private organizations play almost no role. Imagine taking part in a run. And I'll take you on a sprint through current knowledge from motor learning. We go through several stages. We start with the fact that you have to face my assertion that evidence-based coaching, an example, coaching based on current studies on motor learning, contradicts methodical traditionalism in tennis. I would like to ask the question whether we should still talk about teaching technique or where we shouldn't better talk about individual technique development. I look with you at what distinguishes implicit and differential learning theories. But of main course is to talk with you why differences make a difference. First, I would like to take you back to your early childhood and see how you learned to walk as you were a 1 year or 1.5 year old child. Perhaps you have children of your own and you see how they learn or have learned to walk. Obviously, you didn't, or your kids didn't need a walking coach. What helped is the coach as a companion, supporter, and facilitator, but not as a person who had to explain the walking technique to you. Tennis textbooks came on the market and came into play relatively late. I would like to take a look with you at the textbooks that have been valid in Germany over the decades. The first is from 1975, and it was the base for coaches' education. You can save yourself reading the long text. Just take a look at the length of it. Only the ideal forehand strike is described here. From the preparation of the shot to the swing towards the left shoulder. This ideal technique was also described in series of pictures. Deviating from this was considered wrong in coaching tennis. 20 years later, in an update of the textbooks, the text is reduced, as you see. Functional motion analysis has taken over. The ideal technique now consists of an ideal hitting point, where the stroke continues to be based on supposedly proven imaginations of a successful technique. In the meantime, these truths are beginning to falter. Newer scientific findings on motor learning shatter the old ideas. Was the technique orientation the alpha and omega of tennis coaching and the right technique a prerequisite for being able to play the game at all, in any case to be able to play it successfully? The text from the current teaching platform of the German Tennis Federation indicates that this focus on technique rarely occurs in schools and universities, but the ball games outside have a hard time implementing it. Tennis coaches step on like magicians very often. With a suitable slate of hand or spell, they pretend that they conjure up the white rabbit, in this case, the right skills, out of the head. Many of these spells now turned out to be moves. Swing over your shoulder, leg left in front, left leg in front, get down in your knees, take the racket back earlier, watch the ball. These are magic spells that allow a glimpse of the rabbit in individual situations, whether or not they are of permanent help to our players. In the next scene, you see a video which is an example for a classic traditional method in which the coach ambition is in the first, about explaining the technique explicitly and thereby achieving the goal of hitting the ball. This example is, of course, provided people and action are fictitious. Let's tackle the horse from behind and let's see what problems arise from the technique orientation and from methodical traditionalism. Let us assume that the coach assumes that mistakes in the game come from the wrong technique, or that I have to master the technique first to play. Then I will always react to mistakes by correcting the technique, so long until I reach the goal or until my idea of the right technique is achieved. But we know from systems theory that we cannot predict whether a white rabbit will jump out of a black box if I enter something. For example, a technical correction. With feedback and a new input, I can only get closer to what is happening in the black box. I do not see the biomechanical requirements of the athlete. I do not see how the development will take place along the age. I do not see the other influencing factors that influence the actions of my player. We can already say that explicit instructions from the coach may even slow down the skills and creativity. This is what Björn Borg said. He is considered to be one of the most creative players in tennis history. He brought us the topspin shot and the two-handed backhand, striking movements that were in strong contradiction to the technical ideas of his time. As he himself says, despite his many coaches. An important objection to the technique orientation and the associated learning methods comes from learning research. Manfred Spitzer, one of the leading neurobiologists in Germany, rightly points out that the constant reference to errors and the resulting explicit corrections have the effect that I focus on eliminating these supposed errors, and I'm forced to repeat them over and over again because I'm thinking always of them. This refers to the order not to think about pink elephants. Gabriele Wulff brings another aspect to the discussion. She has researched whether it is better to pay attention to your own body when learning motor skills and developing skills, or whether it is not better to choose an external focus. The results seem clear. If I pay attention to my posture while unicycling or slacklining, then it is more difficult for me than when I look for a destination in the near distance that I can concentrate on. But focusing on your own body is the central content of technique training in tennis. You already noticed some scientifically very Verifiable aspects can be filtered out that call the traditional technique approach into question. This is another one. Simons and Chabris have done a nice experiment. Several players throw basketballs to each other. Half of the players wear white shirts and the other half wear black. Viewers of a video on this scene are asked to record the number of rallies on one of the teams. What most viewers miss, however, is that in the video, a person in a gorilla costume walks through the crowd, and that the curtain in the background changes its colors, or that a player from the other team leaves the room. This is called inattentional blindness. From this, we can conclude that the focus on the implementation of a technical instruction by the coach restricts our solution scope for the task, such as playing a foreign stroke in a certain direction. However, we need the flexibility, in particular, to develop a situation-appropriate variable technique, because no situation is like the other. The constraints are constantly changing. Environment, partners, weather, court, ball, spectators, emotions, nothing is the same. There is a good example from soccer. It was investigated how often a certain ball contact is repeated identically. The result was that we had to play the ball an average of 300,000 times in a game in order to have exactly the same contact. How should it make sense in training to exercise this special contact 10,000 times or more? This is what Nadal gets on the point. Now in our run, we've reached the top of the hill. Now comes the nice part, the solutions and the downhill run. Timothy Gallery showed us that there is another way back in 1975. His book, The Inner Game of Tennis, is known as a classic, and his methods and game suggestions are not just an insider tip for exciting tennis. His approach is particularly exciting because he could not look at the scientific studies available today. His ideas came from his stomach, I would say, from the feeling that training should primarily be fun and that you should trust the player's ability to organize himself. The best known exercise is surely hop hit. The aim is to name the impact of the ball in your own field with the call hop and the hitting point with the racket with hit. Galway recognized that the then and now still dominant training methods in tennis correspond to the wrong ideas. Let's take a look at two pictures of how motor learning works. Many think that with the right training, this is a linear process. Coaches who are particularly convinced of themselves even think that with their explicit intervention, they can boost the athlete directly and straight into the sky of victory. But the reality is different. Motor learning is chaotic, moody, up and down, full of frustration, full of regression and small progress. The fable of the centipede and the fox shows us that it is better to rely on your intuition than on the idea of an ideal technique. The fox in this fable asked the centipede how he can run without tripping over his 1,000 feet. The centipede, who has never thought about it, thinks and stumbles. It's similar when we don't trust our players' ability to organize themselves, but rather disturb them with technical instructions. Back to Gabriele Wulff, who says trying to control a sporty movement rather disturbs the development of a suitable technique than to advance it. To give autonomy of learning back to our players. This is what differential learning is all about. I would like to show you the differences in the common methods on our run. In the first picture on the left, you can see the method of grinding. A movement is repeated until it is automated and we have reached the motion of a skill goal that is called set. In the second picture below, we see the so-called methodical series, based on the idea of moving from easy to difficult. It consists of repeating individual steps until I reach the next step and my goal of movement. This can, of course, also be done implicitly. Diagram 3 on the right describes the procedure in differential learning. Instead of the only one movement goal, there is a so-called solution room. You see a lot of sets that could be the solution of the problem. In order to develop the technique in this way, tasks, exercises, and forms of play are constantly varied. This also includes tasks outside of the solution room. This means that errors are also deliberately incorporated in the coaching. Professor Wolfgang Schöllhorn from the University of Mainz has examined the effectiveness of the various methods. Differential learning seems to perform best when there is a relationship between differences and learning process. It is important that the free play does not bring this learning progress with it. The support of the coach and the knowledge about how motor learning works is surely important. This is what we are doing when we use differential learning in motor learning. We think that human beings learn through differences. Everything that makes a difference leads to a learning process. So we believe that we don't need any more explicit coaching. Constant new challenges allow the athlete to create varieties of solutions to the task. Here we have a huge bouquet of exciting and motivating variations. You probably know Dirk Nowitzki, one of the most successful basketball players in the NBA. His personal coach, Holger Gschwendtner, described the training with Dirk as a controlled mischief. This also included incorporating dance steps into basketball training. What a nice idea this could be for tennis training for kids and adults. We can make differences anywhere and anytime. This is for every age. We can change the goals we play for. We can make the targets bigger or smaller. We can put them in or outside the field. We can change the rules. We can change the size of the court we play in. We keep changing partners. We play with different balls, with big ones, small ones, old ones, new, white, yellow, orange, with wet balls. We play in bad and good weather. We change the emotional framework through viewers, through disturbing factors. The combination of the variations results in thousands of game options. Here are a few examples to give you an idea where we can still vary and give the athletes the opportunity to develop their techniques intuitively. These pictures you see now are about the development of the service. We can change the racket postures regularly. We can do that at any age and at any skill level. We can change the general conditions by serving from a stepper or from a balance pad with different leg positions. We play matches with serving from different positions in and out of the field. This places high demands on the serving player, but of course also on the returning player. According to a rule change, the light blue area may not be played. You probably know this type of game. It is called Tabufeld or Death Zone. In differential learning, we use the familiar training ideas, as you see. Usually, this game is used in implicit learning. There, the exercise is repeated until the goal is achieved. Here, the long hit to the outside of the court or the short angle. In differential learning, we exchange the impressions of the players with this game. We leave the solution to the task to the player. And in another exercise, we put the death zone somewhere else in the next training session. This works on all playing field formats and at any age, cooperatively or as a competition. I would like to show you some videos from our tennis school. The stop and go videos are played in the red court with red balls. And you will see it's always the same task, but we vary. And the last video is about an example. The athlete has a heavy ball in her hand, and this is the only thing we change, but it's a variation and it's a difference, and the difference leads to a learning process and makes a difference to the repetition of always the same stroke and the same technique.
Stop and go. 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 Stop and go.
This is what happens. Let the drill do the talking and the athlete do the walking. What we have experienced in our practice was we have more fun. We have the chance of more people, of athletes being more resistant to stress. It's more sustainable. The learning process is more effective. It's more stable, and surely it is more motivating. We've had very good experiences with this way of coaching. We succeed in converting the science knowledge into good practice. At the beginning, it takes a bit of persuasion and lots of conversations with the players and the parents, because it's not the traditional and familiar way. I wish those who are new to this somewhat different path have a lot of courage and then a lot of fun and success with it. Thank you very much for following me through my presentation and through the run. Thanks a lot, and I hope we'll have together an amazing day with the other speakers on It's My Game too, and surely we can talk about some questions and some feedback from you. Thank you.